What's up, Foot Clan? This episode is brought to you by Hulu Plus Live TV. Hulu has live sports. Watch your favorite football teams all season long with over 90 live channels, plus access Disney Plus and ESPN Plus all in one plan. No cable guy, cable box, or extra cable fees needed. Switch to Hulu Plus Live TV today. Live TV plan required. Restrictions apply. Access content from each service separately and select ESPN Plus content via Hulu. Learn more at hulu.com.
The DFS studio is brought to you by DraftKings. Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome in. We made it. Friday, September 8th. It's the start of DFS season for real. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew. Dude, you are looking dang good, Betz.
Dang right, baby. I am looking good. I am feeling good. Week 1 is here. The regular season is here. Week 1 main slate's here. It's a good time to be alive. But what Kyle is referencing are my brand new $20 Amazon blue light glasses that I have since been wearing. Yeah, sponsor of the show. Shout out to Amazon and their blue light department, which I've been wearing for roughly 7 days, 1 week. And I'm not going to lie, man. I don't know if it's placebo or what, but I actually do kind of feel like I've been sleeping better these days. So yeah, I'm rocking some blue light glasses. I mean, we're staring at a computer most of our day, so I figured why not?
Have you ever been a glasses bro before? Like, have you ever been a Four Eyes guy?
I mean, I had them for reading when I was pretty young, but outside of that, never wore them, never have needed them. So this is new.
For me, glasses is just pretty much out of being lazy and not wanting to put in my contacts. So that's part of the life. But I mean, since you've known me, you've pretty much only seen me and interacted with me while wearing glasses, right?
Accurate.
Yeah, and I'll just say, your fantasy football life, the spreadsheet life, is just only going to go up from here. I mean, the sky's the limit for Matthew Betz, people. I think this could be the year.
The year
what
that
does Monica think?
I was going to say the year that what happens. Just this is the year period.
Does Monica think you look cool?
She also got herself a new pair, so we're rocking them together. Just trying to sleep better. And she thinks I look a little silly in mine, but that's fine. I'm all about functionality, which on top of that, by the way, I mean, what an intro to this riveting DFS podcast.
Yes, of course.
I've also been using a new tumbler right here and been drinking so much water, man. I am hydrated left and right. So between that, the blue light glasses, I mean, we're looking up.
You heard it here first, people. Matthew Betz has progressed as a podcaster, which, it's 2023 and you're on board. So I'm fully for that. But the DFS version of Matthew Betz, I think, is going to go to another level on this episode. So this is our Friday episode. This is the one that we put the most amount of work into. We think if we had to get you ready for Sunday, for the main slate for DFS, this is the show you want to be a part of. So we'll talk about our cash picks and give you a pool of players. That's what this is about. Like, here's a pool of players. You get to mix and match, figure out which salaries work. Obviously, you can't fit in every single stud on DraftKings or FanDuel. Then we will talk about the games that we want to stack. So we'll highlight 4 games this week that we think you can attack a GPP with, and in a tournament find yourself, I don't know, sitting on some stacks of cash because you figured out how to stack and the right correlations. And then we'll even prop it like it's hot. So this is a jam-packed episode. It's one of my favorite things to do. A couple years ago, we changed the format where we said, hey, we want to make sure people don't just get picks and picks alone. We want to teach you how to play DFS the right way. So maybe quickly explain why looking at this as a game-by-game thing is more important than just who should I play.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the old way to think about DFS is like, oh, play this guy, he's too cheap. Play this guy, he projects really well. But as we know, chaos happens on Sundays. And so we want to try to maximize on that chaos by playing players in the same game, especially for tournaments that correlate well together. So we're going to talk about how you can stack each game. If you're going to single stack the quarterback, double stack them, would you bring it back with someone on the other side? If you are, who is it going to be and why? So there's just so many ways to go about it. Of course, we'll use roster percentages projected in the DFS pass to help us along the way and get some of those answers. But yeah, man, that I think has been a really good switch in the show format, which we did a couple years ago. And since then, I think a lot of people have found value in it. And I think, just like you said, understand the game a lot better when it comes to DFS, because flat out, this is a game that we play where we're trying to get things right and make sure that we have leverage on the field. So good way to go about doing it, in my opinion.
Yeah, tons of strategy articles. If you feel like, man, I went to sleep this summer and I'm ready to play DFS again, we have tons of strategy articles on our site, including our brand new optimizer in the DFS pass. Right now, I'm looking at this baby. I'm looking at this optimizer. And the last couple of days have just been people getting in there, building lineups. And right now I'm actually in our Discord looking at people just kind of going back and forth saying, hey, here's how you can utilize this. Here's what I've done so far. Here's some of the builds that I'm thinking about. So dfspass.com. If you want to use the promo code DFSPod, people, save some money on our stupid price. And the bit that Betz and I have, if you're new, is that we will keep referring that you can basically, buy 1 cup of coffee and you're done. That's it, right? It's kind of stupid the way that we're charging for this. And then 1 week in cash, you can pay for the entire season. So the DFS pass is super cheap. You get direct access to our Discord channels where Betz and I hop in there. Today, you hopped in there and you answered listener questions for a good hour or so, right?
Yeah, that's something that we'll be doing new this year is having like a weekly Discord segment or thread in there for you guys. That way you can get access to us easily, have us answer your questions. So, we might not answer in the first 5 minutes that you post it, but we will hop in there throughout the week to make sure you get your questions answered. So yeah, that comes with your purchase of the DFS pass. You get access to the Discord, our props channel. Unfortunately, best ball's over, but in the summer, our best ball channel. And of course, my favorite channel, the DFS channel.
Yeah. So go to dfspass.com. Let's talk about our cash picks.
Straight cash, homie.
When I think about the DFS season, Randy Gene Moss might be one of the things that I correlate most, because in our show doc, Randy Moss and his awesome fro is just forever in there. Thanks to this drop, the straight cash homie drop. And in this segment, every single week, we're giving you a pool of players to work with from cash. There's also write-ups. So if you're one of those people, it's kind of funny thinking like the way that people learn, because this is an audio format. And for some people, they absorb everything. I'm actually a really bad auditory learner. Like I'm mostly like visual, kinesthetic, like I need to be doing something. So we have our picks. If you know how to read, then you can access those, right? Like, I mean, that's all we're saying.
Yeah. If you prefer that, if you're stuck back in the old age of reading, which I actually do, I love writing. It's one of my things that I actually like to do, especially about this. So I try to make my articles for you guys something that's fun to read. I throw a couple little funny nuggets in there, sometimes make fun of coaches, stuff like that. So yeah, check it out, read it. You'll get more and more in-depth stats too than we can give on the show. So yeah, check it out. In the DFS pass, my DraftKings cash picks are live. Your FanDuel ones are live, and we'll have GPP articles for you guys later today.
I had someone message me on Twitter that said, I didn't know that you wrote articles. I'm like, well, that's basically what I've been doing the last 10 years. Like this is how you and I have made our income over the years and how we've kind of shown value. I just finished a monster article that was very, very dumb to write about third downs. And I realized that is how I talk things out, right? Like that's the examples. You're able to do it even more than just on a podcast. So fantasyfootballers.com, our DFS articles are on there for DraftKings, FanDuel. Those are our picks. Let's start at the quarterback position. And the way that we do this is we mention a couple of names on DraftKings that you could work with for cash formats. And by cash, once again, that means 50-50s, double ups, and head-to-heads. That's what Betz and I mostly care about, and that's what we talk about in this segment. I'll also mention some ones on FanDuel. I write the FanDuel cash article every week. The salaries are a little different. So just because we mention somebody, it doesn't mean they're a great play on both sites. So for instance, we'll get to defense on DraftKings. We're only going to recommend one play this week, and because everybody's going to play them. And on FanDuel, I would not play them at all in cash. I don't know if you saw Betz. They're like 4,900.
I saw, yeah.
The Commander. So it's different on each site. And if a player is less expensive on FanDuel than DraftKings, that means they're a really good value on FanDuel. That's just something to keep in mind. But give me your quarterback picks this week for cash.
Yeah, there's honestly a bunch of quarterbacks that I like on this slate. Starting at the top, I mean, you can go all the way up to, if you prefer Lamar Jackson for the safety, if you prefer Jalen Hurts, I think he's a great play. But the ones that really I've zoomed in on this week is Geno Smith at 6.1K taking on the Rams. Oh man, the Rams. it looks rough in the secondary. Entering the season, PFF has them ranked dead last. And per Hayden Winks, they have lost the most money in terms of their salary allocation from year to year, from last year to this year. So we're talking about rookies and second stringers and stuff like that. The talent is depleted. And now we got news, Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to play. So Geno has all of his guys in this game. They're at home. They're favored. This is the pass first team last year. So he literally checks every box that you look for. But if you do want to go down a little bit in pricing, and this one I haven't fully committed to one way or the other, but I want to get your thoughts, Kyle, is Anthony Richardson. He's 5.6K. Taking on the Jaguars. We're going to talk about that game. We like it. He's at home. It's indoors in the dome. Look, he could be horrible as a passer. He could throw 2 or 3 picks and still get there because I think he's going to run the football. We saw him in the preseason. He had the one game against the Eagles where he played that full half, and he ran for almost 40 yards in that first half. So if he comes out and runs for 60 yards, upwards of 80 yards, if he gets that, like, I almost feel like anything in the passing game is just kind of a bonus on top. What are your thoughts on Anthony Richardson?
You know me, you can pretty much convince me any way in DFS. Like I can see it work.
I'm in.
I mean, so 5,600 is so cheap. Okay, I think that's the main thing is like you can have your doubts about Anthony Richardson, but like you said, like in cash formats, I think like his rushing line's at over 45 on Underdog. It's like it's a good line, but if he hits that, he hits 50 or so rushing yards, like you're really happy in this game. And they actually have an okay team implied total, which we'll talk about the game. It's like it's over 20. It's not like nothing. So I'm fine with Richardson. It's at home. It's a dome game, whatever. Like, I just think that his price is enough that you can do it. And quarterback roster percentages are not that crazy, especially in week 1. Like, I think it's going to be pretty spread out. I think it's going to be, Justin Herbert. You're going to get some Anthony Richardson. We'll talk about Sam Howell, who people want to play at 4,900. I believe Betz on this podcast 2 months ago, you said, Kyle, I know that on that week 1 podcast, you're going to bring up Sam Howell. And I did.
See, we're already predicting the future, Kyle. I mean, we're right here. We're ready to go for the season.
So I'll just say this about Howell. 4,900 is even cheaper. So I just hate the game environment. I hate it.
I was going to say there's 2 things with Howell that you need to consider. The game environment is yucky. I mean, you can't
38.5.
Right. You can't expect much from the Cardinals pushing back in this game. And the other thing is the Terry McLaurin toe injury. We need to make sure he's in if you are considering Howell, which I would not play Howell if Terry was out. For me, I would use that as a tiebreaker personally, but those are the 2 things I'm considering. And I don't think I'm going to play him in cash just because, like you said, that game environment, I mean, it's one of the lowest totals in the entire slate.
Yeah, I just think that there's better options in week 1 that you can think about and kind of ask yourself, like, what is the best, route for me? So Justin Herbert at 6,900 is not expensive enough. That's like kind of where I've landed is Herbert at 69 in the best game environment on this main slate, right? Like we don't get, options to the Detroit Kansas City game. So is that kind of where you lean if you're going to spend up? Like instead of going all the way up to Lamar, Herbert sounds a little bit better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those 3 options, like the 2 I talked about, Geno, Anthony Richardson, and Justin Herbert are my top 3 for cash. I mean, they're all viable in tournaments as well. But yeah, for cash, those are kind of the 3 that I am looking at this week. It's just a matter of how you want to spend. There are some absolutely outrageous wide receiver plays on this slate, which is leaning me towards going down to the Geno, Anthony Richardson types, because I do want to jam in Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill. Those guys project extremely well this week.
I'll just add this too. I looked this up. If you look at defenses and quarterbacks and how they correlate in games that are under 40 points, which is what the Washington game is, it's not great correlation between the quarterback and their own defense. So we're going to be playing the Commanders. Everybody's playing the Commanders. And so I just think you don't have to. There's about 3 or 4 options. Geno's fine with me. And then on FanDuel, I'll throw out there like Geno's at 7.2. Richardson is probably my favorite play on FanDuel, where the bonus is like you're not thinking of Richardson getting up 300 yards like some of these other guys that can outdistance themselves. So Richardson on FanDuel 6.7 is kind of my preferred play. And I think that's how I'm going to split the difference. Part of DFS is just emotional, you're boxing yourself in and just saying, here's what I want to do. So I think I'm going to play Richardson on FanDuel and then Herbert on DraftKings as of this recording, right? So Saturday, I'll have a different story.
Probably.
Yeah, Betz and I update our best plays. So that's like our favorite article and the most valuable article in the DFS Pass that comes out Saturday. So from the podcast, we kind of give our, hey, I'm kind of leaning here. And then in the best plays, we kind of go to a head. So running back is not easy. I think there's about 4 or 5 places that I want to go. Do you have a confidence of one player above the other in cash?
I do right now, and for me, it's Joe Mixon. He's a guy that, I'm not in love with from like a season-long perspective, but in week 1, when you think about the competition for touches, right, Travion Williams missed almost all of camp with an ankle issue. Chris Evans has seen like 40 total opportunities since he entered the NFL, which was a few years ago, a complete unknown. And then you have the rookie, 5th-round rookie, Chase Brown, who kind of has fallen down the depth chart a little bit, might play a couple snaps here and there, but like Joe Mixon is going to be the dude. And this is one of the better game environments on the slate. We know Mixon can be involved both as a runner and as a pass catcher out of the backfield. And because of the Joe Burrow calf issue, you're not going to see Joe Burrow running around out there. I think we're going to see a lot of, quicker designed plays to get the ball out of his hand. And if that's the case, Joe Mixon could be heavily involved. We've seen him, put up 5-6 target games with Samaje Perine there last year. Obviously, Perine is gone. So I'm pretty big into Mixon this week.
We'll talk about that game in a second, stacking wise, but it has moved in the direction of Cincinnati, despite being on the road, now 2.5-point favorites. And Cleveland's rush defense was pretty bad last year. I think we forget they were 30th in expected points per rush attempt allowed. So I like that call. 6,800 is not enough. I've gotten hot and bothered by Javonte Williams. And I mentioned this before we recorded. $5,700. It's a miracle. Okay. And Betz can probably attest to this more. It is a miracle. He is an outlier in terms of his recovery and his usage early in the preseason and what we can expect right now. But at 5,700, I like what I get from Javonte Williams in a home matchup against the Raiders. And he gets the early down work. I mean, I've been hammering this home, but like Perine's third down stuff does not scare me at all, knowing that Javonte gets a ton of targets early on. And I just love him on a full PPR site. Like, I think Javonte is locked into 5 targets at least in this game. And at 5,700, I just love that price tag. So he's probably one of my stronger, like Mixon and Javonte are kind of above the rest.
Yeah, maybe. I just
in points
like,
per dollar. Points per dollar.
Sure, but when I think about cash games, I'm not trying to get cute. And look, this is a dude who, is coming back from a major injury. We don't know. We haven't seen enough. Like, we have the smallest sample size in the preseason, and everyone says, oh, he's definitely back. Oh, he definitely beat the injury. Maybe he did, and I'm happy to play him in a tournament. But I don't know, man. I just...
You're not going to play him in a tournament.
No, I certainly think I look, if Jerry Jeudy's out and the field is going to hammer Cortland Sutton and hammer Marvin Mims, he feels like an incredible GPP pivot. So I think I'm keeping the light on there for sure. But I just think from a cash standpoint where we care about floor and safety, he's just not there yet for me. So I would not do that personally.
The hardest part about Javonte is I think you can play him in cash and I think you can play him in GPPs and you could get so many different outcomes. So I do agree he's more volatile than some of these other players. The cheap guys this week are Jamal Williams at 5,100, although in a terrible matchup against a Tennessee rush defense, and Raheem Mostert at 5,400 on the road against the Chargers. What do you think about your boy Raheem and your boy Jay Willie?
Yeah, it's set up pretty nicely for Raheem, honestly. This is the best game environment on the slate. Jeff Wilson's on IR. Devon Achane and Salvon Ahmed, they're back from practice. But they've been missing practice, and Devon Achane is a rookie. Raheem Mostert knows the system. He knows Mike McDaniel. Man, the Chargers, 5.6 yards per carry allowed last year was like laughably terrible. And it kind of breaks right for him. So he's a guy that I'm totally cool with in cash. But if he comes with roster percentage, which I think he probably will, I would love to find my way onto the passing game of Miami in this back and forth potential shootout. But like I said, for cash games, I think Raheem at his price, totally fine.
I think the way that people are going to go is they're going to probably play Eckler. So I can see builds that have two running backs in the same game. Mostert, I have wounds. I just need to mention that, the emotional part of like, I have played Mostert, and I have definitely played Mostert in week 1. And I remember when he got hurt 2-3 years ago, whatever it was, week 1. So I think he'll be rostered. Kenneth Walker's cheap at 6K. I can see people wanting to roster him. Aaron Jones, 6.3 against the Bears, but he's actually a dog on the road. So that one's a little tough, but those are other players that I think you can throw in there. J.K. Dobbins is staring me in the face on FanDuel, where I think he's a better play, knowing that he doesn't get a ton of passing work. But at 6.5, I think J.K. Dobbins can smash against the Texans. I looked this up, and he's Jason's start of the week. So Jason and I were going back and forth, like, what's the best way to explain how bad the Texans are at rush defense? Let me put it to you this way. Last year in 17 games against the Texans, teams ran the ball 573 times for 2,894 rushing yards. That's the most in the last 40 years. So the Ravens are huge favorites at home. I think Dobbins on FanDuel is close to being like one of my preferred plays there. He'll definitely be in my top 5. So I like him there. And Mostert's a good play as well at 5.9. So any last thoughts on running back?
No, I think you hit on all the guys that I'm looking at in cash as of the information we have. You mentioned Jamal Williams. We didn't just actually talk about him, but it's not good, man. I mean, Kendrick Miller is probably out with that hamstring injury. And behind him, it's some guy named Kirk Merritt, I believe his name is. And
I had to look him up.
Yep. And on the practice squad, Tony Jones Jr., AKA from the main show, Tony James Brooks Jones Jr., whatever it is. So, I mean, he literally could touch the ball 22, 23 times, and you would not be shocked. I hate the game environment. It projects to be very slow, low scoring. You know, Derrick Henry on the other side, Ryan Tannehill, not really a big play type of guy, right? So, like, I don't love the game environment back and forth. But if you need to drop down from someone like Raheem and you need the salary savings, I mean, the workload, assuming Kendrick Miller is out, should absolutely be there.
Yeah, I agree. I'll just mention Bijan Robinson is cheaper on FanDuel than he is DraftKings. So he's a better play if you want to play him on FanDuel week 1. Do it. Have fun. I also am curious because although Jamal Williams is cheap, I love Chris Olave, and I know I'm biased about Chris Olave because I have been playing him everywhere all the time. He's on my main leagues. He was my guy last year. So at 6,500, Chris Olave on DraftKings, is he in your player pool this week?
Yeah, I think Chris Olave is in for a pretty big game. I'm very excited about him. I didn't put him on my cash pool this week, and that could change come Sunday. But right now, like I said, there's just so many great cheap options, or at least it looks like there will be, that I kind of have this stars and scrubs build in cash. But if that means the field is going to overlook these kind of 6K-ish range wide receivers, Chris Olave, I mean, every report out of New Orleans has been this guy's been unguardable. He's been unstoppable. And we loved his profile coming out. He confirmed that last year as a rookie. And last season, man, Tennessee was torched in the secondary, and they didn't really get that much better. So, like I said, I don't love the game environment, but you could talk me into a one-off play of Chris Olave, no doubt about it.
I think a lot of people will look at Tyreek, look at Jefferson, look at Chase, and go, I can afford them this week. Like, if you're not paying up, like we didn't even mention CMC, but if you're not paying for that, you probably want to pay up at wide receiver, which is usually a good strategy in general. So I can't say anything negative about those guys. Do you have a lean between Tyreek, 8,200, Jamar Chase, 8,100, and Jefferson up at 8,800?
I mean, they're all so incredible. So my answer is yes. But right now, I think my favorite of the three is going to be Tyreek Hill. Just thinking about the tiebreaker of the game environment, plus Jalen Waddle's been banged up for the last 3-ish weeks or so with that oblique injury. It sounds like he's going to play, but he's been limited in practice. And I just think in this situation, if Tron Armstead is out, which that is a huge injury to monitor, left tackle for the Dolphins,
right?
You're going to see, I think, just so much quick passing to Tyreek Hill, like get the ball out to his hands and let Tyreek just go to work. So love the game environment. I mean, all three of those guys are incredible. I've been playing all of them across lineups and GPPs and everything this week, so I'll have exposure. But I think if I had to pick one right now, for me, it'd be Tyreek.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. I think he's going to be the most popular too of those, like in big tournaments, which in cash, we don't care. In cash, we do not look at roster percentage very much, unless you're thinking about late swap and who you can change later. But I'm fine with Tyreek, and I think a lot of the builds this week, based on our optimals, based on what I'm seeing, is people paying up for a wide receiver, finding a middle tier guy, and then if we get news from the Denver front or Green Bay, people are going to punt with a rookie wide receiver like Marvin Mims is 3K, Jaden Reed of the Packers 3K. I think that's going to be a common build in week one, and I'm not telling people not to do it. It's just we have no idea how much playing time these rookies are going to have. So it is a little bit more fragile than just saying, oh, like Jaden Reed scares me way more. Like Marvin Mims, I think I would be more open to playing. So is that kind of how you see it?
Yeah, and we actually just got news too that Romeo Doubs is back at practice today on Thursday when we're recording this. No Christian Watson still. So it sounds like Watson is trending out. Doubs may be trending in. And if either of those guys play, I don't think you can play Jaden Reed. Even when Doubs was out in the preseason, Reed was still locked in only to 3 wide receiver sets, which that can work. Don't get me wrong. It's just the projection would be more fragile. So I think right now I would lean, if I had to pick one of the min guys for cash, assuming Jerry Jeudy is out, I would lean Marvin Mims.
Does that open up Doubs for you? He's 4,400. If you knew Watson was out, does he belong at least in the pool?
Oh, for sure. He belongs in the pool. The Bears secondary and defense as a whole last year was absolutely atrocious. The concern is, like these other games we talked about, the game environment is just so brutal. And look, Jordan Love's flash in the preseason, but we just have no idea, right? So there's a lot of unknowns. And I think about week one cash, like I'm trying to play things that I know will project well and project well for a good reason that are not fragile projections. These cheap, especially these kind of Green Bay guys, like they will have fragility in their projections, no doubt about it.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
What's up, Foot Clan? This episode is brought to you by Hulu Plus Live TV. Hulu has live sports. Watch your favorite football teams all season long with over 90 live channels, plus access Disney Plus and ESPN Plus all in one plan. No cable guy, cable box, or extra cable fees needed. Switch to Hulu Plus Live TV today. Live TV plan required. Restrictions apply. Access content from each service separately and select ESPN Plus content via Hulu. Learn more at hulu.com.
All right, let's finish talking about a couple more wide receivers. But as we're mentioning this over and over again about adding players to the pool, I realize that it's like we're just like over and over being like, hey, yeah, you can come to our pool party. Like you're totally allowed in. Oh yeah, you want Romeo Doubs? Yeah, he can come in. Like he's totally he's one of the bros. I mean, I had a pool party every single summer. My birthday's in July, so it's just like that was my life. Was pool parties in the summer.
Basketball?
Yeah, pool basketball.
Yeah, buddy.
Eat your pizza, get your Ninja Turtles toys when you're a kid. I mean, your Nerf Super Soakers, whatever you need. Like you get all those toys and you're good to go. But that's what we're doing. We're just inviting people to the pool party. And at a certain point, you can't really have too many people, right? Like there's a certain point where it's like, I'm not going to invite my whole like third grade class, right?
I'm sorry. Actually, sir, you're not on the list.
We're friends. Like we sit next to each other in school, but like this is my pool party. This is what I do. So other wide receivers, we mentioned Chris Olave. We mentioned some of the cheap guys. Debo and Ayuk. I wish I could just play like San Francisco wide receiver and just soak up all the production there. If Kittle is out, I feel like for me, Debo is a lock.
Yes, I would agree. 5.5K. For reference, last year, I think he was like 7,400 in week one. So that's the discount we're getting. Feels like an incredible, sweet buy low opportunity for one of the most explosive players with the ball in their hand. And if Kittle is out, which he's dealing with that groin injury, did come back limited earlier this week, so we'll see. But if he's out, I mean, yeah, Debo looks rock solid.
It's weird because I think we're still waiting, but Brandon Ayuk, 4.9 is crazy cheap for what he is. And I feel like he could be more popular than what he is, but Debo's sitting right there. So I like both those wide receivers. Elijah Moore, we have to talk about him because everyone's going to play him. I feel like I'm at the point now where it's not as cool for me. And that's also my personality. So do you have an Elijah Moore take at 3,800?
I mean, I don't think he's going to be played at all, actually, with the news that we got with some of these cheap guys. It
went up and down. He was cool, but now he's not. Like, I liked him before he was cool kind of thing.
Yeah, like we talked about him all summer as like that price is so crazy because of where he went in best ball. But because of the fact that we have these Denver guys and Marvin Mims, and we didn't even talk about Tutu Atwell, the field is going to play. like people are going to skip over him at 3.8. Right now in our optimizer, I'm seeing 5.6%. So he is not going to be played at all by the field based off the information we have.
Yeah. I would rather play Marvin Mims if I knew that Judy was out, to be honest. Okay. That's where I'm at. Christian Kirk, I think, is a fine play at 5.6. Calvin Ridley on FanDuel, I think, is a really good play at 7K. So just keep in mind the salaries are different overall salary. Chris Olave on FanDuel is a great play. JSN, I just want to throw this out there. I think for tournaments, he might be overlooked, but fully practicing this week. If you're going to stack Geno, I don't mind it. We're not going to highlight that game, but on FanDuel, he's really cheap. Like 5.3 for a player that any given week, it could be one of those guys. Lockett, Metcalf, JSN. We'll be talking about them more this year because he's my dude, man. He is that dude. It's kind of,
good.
He's that guy. Tight end. I wrote down so hard this week. It is really hard. And I don't like... I don't want to play Tyler Higbee, man. I hate him. And his family. No, I'm just kidding.
Listen, his price is egregious, okay? Tyler Higbee should not be 4.8K. And this was priced before the Cooper Cup stuff happened. He should be 3,700. I don't understand, but he still projects pretty good. And if things break right, where you get Tutu and Marvin Mims and Jaden Reed, like if you get those guys that open up in your player pool, you can play Tyler Higbee and not think twice about it because you have so much salary to go around. So keep him in mind. I prefer to spend as little as possible in cash. And if DJ Chark and Adam Thielen are out, Chark with the hamstring, Thielen with the ankle, was out on Thursday. If those guys are out, Hayden Hurst is 3K. I think he's totally fine. Game environment's terrible. It's a rookie quarterback, but it's 3K. What could go wrong?
And it's a revenge game. What could go wrong against the Falcons?
Most importantly, right. We forgot that's the most important metric we track.
If you're not used to tight ends and how they work in DFS, they usually stink. And we talk about paying up or punting. There's no Kelsey. We don't even know as of this recording if Kelsey's playing. Mark Andrews is 6.2, so he's not crazy expensive. Hawkinson's 5.9. I just hate paying for that. When you go in our optimizer, one of the things I encourage people to do is you can sort by values, and it takes kind of the salary, the points per dollar, the projection, it combines all of that. It's one of my favorite things in cash to look at. You won't find values at tight end almost ever. Like they just don't exist that much because the projections aren't that strong. If you wanted to punt, I think Hurst, and then some people I've seen Luke Musgrave, but I just cannot go into week one and say, I know exactly what a rookie tight end with Jordan Love is going to do. Like Luke Musgrave could have one target and that wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah, for sure. It's risky. I think he's totally fine if both Dobbs and Watson are out. I would not play Reed and Luke Musgrave together. Personally, it is worth noting, dude, he played like every snap with the starters in the preseason. He ran like an 89% route rate. I mean, that's a small sample, but that is an elite number for a tight end. I think that would have to be sticky if they don't have their top two guys. So just monitor Green Bay's news. I mean, at 2.9, like what are you asking for? 5 points? I think he can do that.
This is the hard-hitting analysis that I came to the podcast for. Betz knows the rookie tight end route rate for Luke Musgrave in preseason that 2 years from now, he could be a thing.
We're locked in, baby. What could go wrong in week one, right? Am I right?
My wife was reading my article because I mentioned her at the very beginning of the article. And after the first couple of sentences, she goes, I don't even know what this means anymore. And I was like, you know what? I don't either. None of us do. It's fake football. None of us maybe know what half of this could mean. Maybe. So, yeah, tight end's tough. I don't have a strong lean right now, to be honest, on the podcast. Like we gave some names, Higbee, Hurst, Hawkinson, Musgrave. Those are kind of the list. On FanDuel, Higbee's 5.3, so his price is a little bit better, but I like him on a full PPR site. It's like, dude, you're gross. To get out of here. I don't like you, Tyler Higbee. Defense. I don't even have to say anything here. It's a pretty simple, short part of the segment.
Yeah, play Washington and log out. Don't worry about it. They're going to be 65, 70% in cash in these double ups. Just play them. Like they're literally the best play on the slate against the Cardinals who, try to be sneaky and not tell us their quarterback. We found out it's Josh Dobbs. It's a train wreck. And by the way, Hollywood Brown limited this week with the hamstring issue. My goodness, if he's out, do they move the ball past the 50, Kyle?
They probably will. They'll probably surprise a little bit. But there's an Athletic article that talked about how Jonathan Gannon, to prep, he didn't study a single snap of the Cardinals' 2022 season. What the heck is this guy doing? Why does he have a job? And it's wild to me. Yes, play Washington in cash. Tell people, like, hey, you got to get different, though. Like, you probably have to get different. I mean, they could hit, but you probably have to get different in tournaments.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it just depends on the rest of your lineup. Like, if you have enough differentiation elsewhere, in theory, it's fine because they project so well. But we know defense is so volatile. We know pricing doesn't always correlate. So if you can find someone a little cheaper, that will have a fraction of the roster percentage. And let's say Washington gets you 7 points, in cash, you're thrilled. But in a tournament, if someone else at defense gives you 12, 13, 14, pick 6, something like that, like you're lapping the field at that position, which is the hardest to predict. So I will be trying to find ways to get off the chalk, especially in large field tournaments.
Yep. On FanDuel, they're way too expensive at 4.9. So on FanDuel, I have in my pool Seattle at 4.2 against the Rams and Denver at 4K, where the pricing is a little different. If you want to do that, you can totally do it. But I think the best part of this episode is talking stacks.
Stack Attack.
So Betz and I are going to preview 4 games. We're going to kind of blitzkrieg through some of them and then finish this episode on props. First game we're going to talk about is Jacksonville Jaguars at the Indianapolis Colts. This game has an over-under of 45.5. Jacksonville is a 5-point road favorite. What do you like in this game, and how can we stack it?
I am really into Trevor Lawrence stacks this week. It's one of those games that I think is kind of a tier 2 game when you look at the total and everything like that, 45.5. But there's not a lot of high total games on this slate, right? So when you think about this game potentially shooting out, I could absolutely see it. Because last year, after the bye week, Trevor Lawrence was 11th in YPA, 5th in passer grade per PFF, 5th in EPA per play. And you put this in pace of play. From week 9 on, they were ninth in first down pass rate. And where they were leading in the second half, they were second. Now they add Calvin Ridley. So I could see a ton of dropbacks here for Trevor Lawrence. And man, the Colts secondary was rough. Then they lost that guy to the gambling suspension. He's now on the Eagles for next year. Their secondary is brutal. So Trevor Lawrence stacks look great because the field, I don't think, knows exactly where to play him, right? Because you could say, well, I love Lawrence. That's great. But is it Ridley? Is it Kirk? Is it Zay Jones? Is it Evan Ingram? And that, we talk about all the time. Ambiguous situations allow you to take advantage of lower roster players. So I'm going to be trying to find ways to get different with Trevor Lawrence stacks this week. I think Christian Kirk, you mentioned him as a cash play. I am seeing him coming through at less than 10%. He feels like an awesome GPP play.
Yes, I love the Jaguars, especially on FanDuel, where I think they're better values. But for me, it's real simple. If you want to attack this game and you think that the Jaguars go over their team implied total, stack Lawrence with 2 options, Ridley and Kirk, Ridley and Ingram, Kirk and Ingram, whatever combination you want to do that. Make sure that you are looking at this game in a way where it makes sense, because Deion Jackson's going to get played on the other side, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not putting him in my player pool at all. He's not invited to the party, despite being 4,100.
Get out of here, Deion.
And Evan Ingram, I'm only playing in Lawrence stacks, so that's how I want to handle it. I do think Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce are interesting bringbacks if you want to, but you don't have to. Like, this is a game environment. If you think the Colts just stink and you want to build your lineups that way, you just double stack the Jaguars and move on from this game. I also think you can do a Jacksonville defense with ETN if you think Richardson turns the ball over multiple times, which that wouldn't shock us at all either, right? He's a rookie quarterback that's historically had a terrible completion percentage. So I don't love the Colts side. You would only single stack Richardson because he runs the ball. So if you wanted to go Richardson, Pity City, and then bring it back with somebody like, I don't know, ETN, that'd be fine. I'm down with Pity City.
We built this city.
So any last thoughts on this game? Because I think it's hard for me to see this game hitting the over. It's easy for me to see the Jaguars going above their team implied total.
Yeah, I like the Jags a lot, like we talked about. As far as the Indy side, we talked about Richardson as a cash play. I mean, I think you could play him. Truthfully, I think you don't have to force a stack. I think you could play him naked because what if he gives us Justin Fields-esque ceiling of rushing that we saw last year, right? Like he wasn't bringing, I don't know, Chase Claypool and EQ St. Brown with him, right? It was just Justin Fields running the football. If Richardson gives us that, which, I mean, 80 yards, if he hits 100 yards, like that is on the table this week. And in the preseason, dude, Shane Steichen had his guys going super fast. No huddle rate was through the roof. Again, small sample, but if that's what they want to do, I think there's some sneaky shootout appeal here. So projections are not going to love Michael Pittman. They're not going to like Alec Pierce, but specifically Pierce. Like you look at that price tag, right? We talked about, Marvin Mims and Jaden Reed and all these 3K guys. Like no one is playing Alec Pierce. So if you're playing a large field, you need a sub 5% guy. I think Alec Pierce is that dude.
Yep. And I put that in the Pace of Play article. Jacksonville, I need to throw this out there. They sported the third highest pressure rate in the second half last year. So there could be turnovers in this game, but I think there can be a lot of fun things if you figure out the right combination. If Richardson is just better and more advanced than what we think, those are the things you bet on in week 1, right? Like you just say, hey, it's Richardson, it's Pierce, and then ETN on the other side. And you are escaping a ton of stacks. Now, don't get super contrarian elsewhere if you're going to do that, right? Like if you're going to stack that way, like, play some other players that project to be more popular, play your Tyreeks, play your, Justin Jeffersons, whoever, you can go about it that way. But give me your Vegas pick.
This feels like a completely square play. But I look at where Richardson is in his career and I look at where Trevor Lawrence is, and I'm going to take the better quarterback at less than a touchdown.
Yep, I will take Jaguars -4.5. And by the way, this is not official betting advice. This is more of just, here's how I see the game flow. If I had to just guess, there's obviously tons of ways any game can go, but it's kind of fun at the end of this to kind of guess where we lean. The next game is Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are 6-point home favorites, where last year your boy Kirk Cousins went 8-1 at home. Okay, remember the Vikings also were a fluky team in one-score games, but the over-under is fine, 45.5. I had to throw out all of the pace of play stuff from last year. Like I started looking at this game like, oh wow, Tampa Bay was first and seconds per play. They were 6th in neutral pace, but that was a Tom Brady team. This is a Baker Mayfield team, and Baker Mayfield only does 2 things. Well, maybe 3. He chucks it deep, he checks it down, or he's sitting on the bench because the dude did something stupid. So he is a volatile player, and I will not tell anyone to stack Baker Mayfield. I think he can go so many different directions. I think he could put up some fight because the Vikings defense is giving up one thing over and over again. It's deep plays. So the Buccaneers have the weapons to be able to do that. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rachaad White out of the backfield. Like, there's enough here that if you want to double stack Kirk Cousins, I love bringing him back with a Buccaneers player. So is that how you're going to do this game? Just like Kirk Cousins, pick 2 Vikings, and then bring it back with a Buccaneers player?
That seems like the most logical thing to do, and I think it makes a ton of sense. Kirk projects well. We know he's played historically much better at home. This is not prime time. It's week 1, right? It lines up well for Kirk. So Justin Jefferson, I mean, my goodness, the ceiling on this guy is insane. Do not set lineups this week without at least some exposure to Justin Jefferson. I think he's going to be incredible, and he will be rostered, but for very good reason. The splits at home for Jefferson are crazy. He averages over 100 yards per game when he plays at home in his career and almost a full touchdown. So I like that. And then the tricky thing is the secondary stacking partner. There's a lot of unknowns, right? We're not sure how much Jordan Addison plays, how much KJ Osborne plays. Is TJ Hawkinson really in football shape? Remember, he missed almost all of camp with the hold-in situation with the ear and the back tightness allegedly, and now money fixes everything. So he'll be out there, but like, you just don't know, right? So I think you can get different in this spot with Kirk Cousins, but you're not playing him without Justin Jefferson, obviously. So love that side. And then, yeah, dude, I think Mike Evans is a really sneaky play. I mean, you've got the motivation for the contract, right? If you want to play narrative street, you've got the nice payout to be contrarian on Chris Godwin, who's 5,900, Mike Evans, 63. And last year, Minnesota's defense, man, in secondary was so bad. 31st against the pass, 31st in explosive pass rate allowed. And PFF is not expecting much of an improvement at all. Entering the season, they ranked him 25th. So I know Baker Mayfield has his flaws, obviously, but it only takes one. It takes one deep shot to Mike Evans. I think I'm going to play him and hope for the best.
Yeah, I'm looking at roster percentage projections. Like Godwin projects way higher in roster percentage. Evans is down there below the 5% threshold we look for. So I like that a lot. I'm staying away from Alexander Mattison. I think he's fine. Like in redraft leagues, I'm playing him. I think he's fine for medium projection. It's just, I'm looking for a ceiling, and a ceiling outcome for Kirk Cousins is he throws for 300, at least 2, maybe 3 touchdowns, and Jefferson. You mentioned Jefferson at home. Tyreek is on the road, and I've mentioned this before, but like Tyreek is the best road wide receiver of all time. Like anybody, Jerry Rice, Calvin Johnson, anybody. So both those players, if there's some possible way that I can play both of them in the same lineup, that would be bananas. I don't think you can, but I'm going to get 1,000 messages from people like, look, you totally can. But anyway, you can play those wide receivers. And who do you want to double stack with? It's my last little thing. If you're playing Cousins, Jefferson, who's the third piece?
I mean, I think it's Jordan Addison, but that's what I was saying. Like, we don't really know how the playing time, the route participation, how it's really going to be. Are they actually going to mix in KJ Osborne a ton? I don't know. So that's why I was saying, use the roster percentage report, find the guy that's going to come in lower than the others, and don't be afraid to get different.
Yep. I will take the over in this game.
Interesting. I could see it going either way. I just like Minnesota to hit their team total.
Okay, that's totally fine. Next game is Cincinnati at Cleveland. Cincinnati is now a 2.5-point road favorite, and the over-under has crept up. It's now at 48.5. So it's a good game. And in this week, right, that's the second highest total. Is that correct?
Yep, for the main slate it is.
So last year, these two teams split their series. We joked about this today on the main show, but Cleveland last year won 32-13 at home on Halloween. That was a night that Jason lost a ton of money trying to bet on Evan McPherson's over for his field goals.
Forgot about that.
Don't do that while you're trick-or-treating. I was with him, and the whole time he was just so down in the dumps. I was like, dude, it's Halloween. It's fun. Anyway, and then Cincinnati won later on in the year. So at first glance, you can look at the Bengals and say, oh, they should just roll. This was a really tough division. When we did the divisional previews, we talked about how every single team went 3-3 in this division. So don't just think that you can pencil in the Bengals. Joe Burrow has 5 career starts against Cleveland. He's averaging 295-2. That is pretty nice, but based on his rushing, his injuries, he's probably not going to run as much as we want him to. So I'm actually kind of down on Burrow this week. Like, I don't feel like this is a game where I have to go there, but I think his options, like Joe Mixon, we mentioned in cash, you want to play Chase, you want to play Higgins, I'm totally fine with that. Yeah,
I think you summed it up pretty well. I'm okay to play a Joe Burrow double stack because we know the ceiling is there every single week. And like, man, what if last year was a fluke? What if Deshaun Watson comes out and we're like, oh yeah, he's as good as he was in Houston? If that was the case, this game is flying over the total, right? With these two quarterbacks, you would think. So I like this game because of the fact that I think T. Higgins is going to get overlooked if you want a double stack partner there. And then it's easy to jam in a bring back, whether it's Amari Cooper or Elijah Moore. We talked about he's not going to get played. We were wrong about that over the summer. He's not going to get played on this slate most likely. And Nick Chubb is in this game, and he is not going to be played by anyone. And when you think about the situation for him, right? Like, we were all trying to figure out, is it Jerome Ford, who got steamed up to like round 13 in best ball? Kyle put his mortgage on it. Has the hamstring injury. He's off the injury report, so he is going to play. But how much, right? They had to trade for Pierre Strong to kind of give themselves some security. So would anyone be shocked if we look back on this game, Nick Chubb carries the ball 24 times and has 150 yards and 2 scores? No, of course not, right? So that is a ceiling I think worth chasing.
Yeah. He's going to be 5% or less. Like, I just think people are not going to play him. So if you did play Chubb, are you saying that you want to stack the Burrow side, or is it just a simple like correlation play where you're like, I just want to play Chubb and then find somebody? It's expensive if you're using a lot of your salary on a Chubb Chase combo. A Chubb Higgins combo, a little bit better, but still, like that's what you're having to bet on, and we're not playing 2 running backs in the same game.
Totally. Which is kind of what I was saying, is the field is going to play Mixon, which I think he's a great play, but guys fail all the time, right? So if Mixon fails and people aren't wanting to click Chubb, you could just say the game hits the under, Nick Chubb rolls, and the rest of the guys are good, but not GPP winning type plays. And you could play it that way and just kind of fade the game. So I will probably have different exposures here where I am stacking Burrow, but then also a couple lineups where it's just Nick Chubb and I get out of there.
I think that's what I like most in this game, is that Chubb is the piece that in large field tournaments I can use as leverage on if people are playing Elijah Moore or Joe Mixon. I think he makes a lot of sense there. And he's leverage on Eckler, CMC. Like, the running backs that are more expensive. We talked about that recently. So any interest in Amari Cooper, 5,800 is fairly cheap, and his home road splits have been pretty severe.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing Deshaun Watson stacks, I think you obviously should have Amari Cooper in there. Right now, we have him for about 7%. That feels like a very rock solid tournament play. Again, there's unknowns here, right? And that's why we're not for sure that, Amari Cooper is still going to be great with Deshaun Watson, or that, Njoku is going to be great, because people are not sure if Deshaun Watson is still Deshaun Watson. And if he is, these prices are going to look very silly. So I think it's one of those things that you sort of play it before you see it, and you hope for the best.
I took Cincinnati minus 1.5, and I just got to say, since I've done that, Betz,
Moving the lines.
it's pretty cool, man. When it happens, right?
Look at you, man. Throwing around 4 figures on this game, just getting the lines moved. I think it's the right side. I would take Cincy as well.
Yeah, I think this game could be close, and I do like the route that you said. If Chubb rolls, game hits the under, take it that way. But yeah, I would take the Bengals minus 1.5. Now it's minus 2.5. One more game it's going to talk about. It's Miami Dolphins at the Los Angeles Chargers, and I'm just calling it the sexiest game of the week. This is beautiful for DFS. It's also the Chargers, so we're going to always be all in and love it and get hurt. So the Chargers are 3-point home favorites. What could go wrong? And the over-under is at 51. In my Pace of Play article, I gave this game pace score of a 4.5 out of 5, and I never give 5s. Like, I'm a pretty hard grader. So 4.5, what does that tell you just from like how these teams want to play and what we can do moving forward in terms of stacking?
Yeah, can I just read a little excerpt from the Vegas report, which is in the DFS Pass?
Ooh, I've heard of it. Yes.
Yes. Award-winning article. You should check it out. No. I said, when looking for games that can shoot out for fantasy, we're generally looking for high-ceiling players, an elevated pass rate, and 2 coaching staffs who are willing to be aggressive. Check, check, and check. These teams want to go fast, they want to throw, and they are willing to be aggressive. We've seen Brandon Staley go for it on 4th down. We've seen Mike McDaniel just, put his guys in position to succeed. And I think about the Raheem Mostert thing especially, right? I talked about it. I think he's totally good in cash. But the way that you have leverage on him is you say, look, the way this is broken for Tyreek has been insane. Do we think Mike McDaniel really wants to load Raheem Mostert up with 25 carries in week 1 at 31 years old? I don't know. I'm going to lean that Mike McDaniel is a smart coach and understands if Teron Armstead is out, Tyreek Hill is getting peppered over and over and over with targets. He's coming off career highs in targets, catches, and yards after leaving Patrick Mahomes. So I'm betting on Tyreek Hill in this game. I think he goes off. And then, the other thing is, if you want to include Waddle, it's expensive, but no one's going to play Jalen Waddle this week. So if you did want to go with the 2 a double, I think it's totally fine to play, a chalky piece in Tyreek, because Waddle will be contrarian.
Last year, 2 a double stacks was what we preached a ton. Like, if you're going to do Tua, you double stack them. So if you want to play both of them, it can work. I think what I like best in this game is double stacking Herbert, bringing it back with Tyreek, and going from there. The crazy thing about the Dolphins is I'm actually not a Mike McDaniel guy. Like, it's his personality rubs me a little bit the wrong way. As a play caller, cool. I'm all about that. This team has to have play action though. And so if I had to throw one wrench in this game of why it fails, is that the Miami offensive line is just not good. Like Teron Armstead, we've talked about. They've also had issues at left guard. If you can't protect Tua, then this game will be, and I know that's like a football guy's take, but that's how this game hits the under. And I'm just a little worried that the team is a little bit short on depth, right? Like, it's just a thin team. And if the running game's not working, then things could change. Now, the Chargers gave up a ton of deep passing last year, and Miami kept throwing, even they were leading 4th highest pass rate in the league. So it's almost like I don't care if they can run the ball at all. I actually don't want them to run the ball at all, because Raheem Mostert is probably a player I won't be playing a lot in GPP. So I like Tyreek in this game, but the Chargers side, Justin Herbert is priced great. And the side, like, to me, here's what I'm doing. I'm playing Herbert, double stacking with like Keenan, Gerald Everett, or Keenan, Big Mike. I'm not playing Keenan with Eckler because those guys do not correlate very well, and I put that in the pace of play. Eckler does correlate pretty well with Mike Williams. So if you wanted to do Eckler, Mike Williams, and Tyreek and not even play Herbert, I'm okay with that if you think Eckler's the one that scores 2 on the ground and Big Mike gets 100 and a score. That's another route to do this game. So the Chargers side, you can go in about 5 different directions, and I'm all about that life.
Yeah, what could go wrong? The Chargers are the dudes for us this year. We've been all over Herbert in best ball. This is a great time to jump in. Not even feet first, Kyle. Head first, okay? We're going in with Herbert. And just for reference, no quarterback in the props market has a higher yardage total than Justin Herbert this week. So the market is definitely on it for sure. And I was just looking through the roster percentage report. No one's playing Gerald Everett. Keenan Allen's projected for less than 7%. That sounds pretty sweet. And Big Mike's around 11%. So totally manageable. If you did want to go double stack, you will also save salary, right? Like if you're dropping down to Big Mike, dropping down to Keenan, we talked about that 6 to 7-ish range is not going to be played a lot this week. Those two guys right there make a ton of sense. And man, if this game does go off, I think Herbert is bringing multiple pieces with him.
Yes. And Gerald Everett, I'm glad you mentioned him. 4,300. I hate the price. Like I wish he was also like Higbee, like
it's gross.
3,500. It's like Gerald Everett's just always a thin play. Tight ends like Everett, I only play if I'm stacking with a quarterback. Like I would set a rule in the optimizer if you use it, like only put this player in if he's stacked with Herbert. And Miami allowed the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends last year. 25% of their opponents' receptions were to the tight end. And we mentioned like the Chargers, their team implied total at 26.8 is awesome. It's tied with the Ravens. So you want to lean into this team. So if it's Herbert, Big Mike and Everett, or Keenan and Everett, or whatever way you want to do it, like we're going to lean into the Chargers as the team that projects best with pace. I do love Keenan Allen though. Have I ever mentioned that to you? I can't remember.
This is actually breaking news.
I just love that Kellen Moore, like he's good with slot wide receivers, and everything in camp has been he's still the main guy, Keenan Allen. So on a full PPR site, he can get there. It's just tough when it comes to touchdowns. Like he's just never been a touchdown guy. So I like the Chargers -2.5. If Miami didn't have those injuries on the offensive line, I think I would take Miami in the points.
Yeah, that's a huge injury. And I just looked, it looks like he was out again today on Thursday. So 2 straight DNPs for Tron Armstead, looking
he's
not likely to go. Dude, the splits with him on and off are massive as far as the pressure rate allowed, and to his numbers. So low key, that is the way I think this game fails because Joey Bosa is on the other side and he's awesome. And Khalil Mack. So yeah, there is a path to this game failing, but like we said, we do want to bet on the Chargers in this spot. So like Kyle said, I am also going to lay the points with LA.
All right, Betz, do you have any quick thoughts before we get into Prop It Like It's Hot? Like, I didn't want to go fully into Baltimore, but if you want to stack them, you can. Like, if you want to stack Lamar, I'm fine with that. Just a single stack. But do you have any thoughts on the Philly-New England game, just as a quick aside?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw this in here and just mention, like, in the late slate, as we just talked about, everyone is going to be on this Miami and LA game. So if you need late swap pivot options, no one is playing Philly and New England. And when you think about Philly last year, right, the thing that you see in your head is Miles Sanders in the second half. Well, obviously there's no Sanders this year, but they were leading so much. This spread has stayed very close, which is a very fishy line. And I think a lot of the money is actually on the Eagles and it's not moving. So I think this game actually might stay closer than a lot of people think. And if that is the case, Jalen Hurts will be throwing way more than the market assumes, which means Devonta Smith, AJ Brown can absolutely pay off their tags, and no one is playing those guys. So I just want to point that out. If you need a late swap pivot option, those guys look awesome for tournaments. And look, on the other side, it's not good, right? And last year was terrible, but at least they have an adult in the room now in Bill O'Brien actually calling a competent offense. So Philly's defense could regress. I could actually see this game hitting the over. Just wanted to point that out. Don't overlook it. I think it is a sneaky play.
Yes, AJ Brown and Devonta Smith are going to show up way lower. Like I almost had to check, like, is there something wrong in our system? People are not going to be playing them because of the game environment. They're on the road, but AJ Brown destroys man coverage. And New England in preseason, they played that at the 4th highest rate, 6th highest rate last year. So I respect Bill Belichick because he knows what he's good at. He tries, but AJ Brown's also way better than any person you could throw at him, especially in man coverage. He's just too physical.
You also mentioned, too, along the same lines, that man coverage is going to lead to a ton of rushing opportunities for Jalen Hurts. They were among the league leaders in yards allowed to quarterbacks. So I think a little Hurts stack is on the table this week.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in playing them in some single entry formats, like maybe like medium stakes, like maybe not. I just think that you're right. Like nobody's going to be playing them, especially in the afternoon window. So sneaky thoughts from Betz about his home team. What could go wrong, right? All right, one more segment.
Prop it like it's hot.
Every week, Betz and I will give you a couple of props that you can find, whether that's on DraftKings, MGM, FanDuel, Prize Picks, Underdog. We give all of those. And in the DFS Pass, Betz gets to alert people in our Discord channel. It says, hey, take this prop before the lines moves, before I hit that drop again. So this is one that you are about to add in. It's Austin Hooper, who maybe you forgot that he's still in the NFL, under 21.5 receiving yards. It's gross because you probably didn't even think about him, but we love taking unders on tight ends, right?
Yeah, the hit rate on those generally is pretty good, and it's Austin Hooper, man. They took Michael Mayer in the second round, so you're going to see, I think, both these guys on the field. The issue is, like, the numbers for Hooper have just plummeted as far as his targets per route run rate. They've dropped in 3 straight seasons. The game environment doesn't project great, so I'm not sure there's going to be a ton of play volume there. So I think we're hoping he comes in at like 2 catches for like 15 yards and you're out of there. It will be a sweat, I think, but we will take the under.
Yeah, I already took the under. It feels pretty good. And by the time people are listening to this, that'll already change. No big deal. You and I both arrived at 2 different quarterbacks that have the exact same line in terms of their pass attempts, and we like the under. I don't love taking under on pass attempts. Like, it scares me sometimes, but you have Ryan Tannehill under 31.5 pass attempts, and I have Brock Purdy under 31.5 pass attempts. So I'll let you go first with Tannehill, and I'll follow up with Purdy.
Yeah, this is a number that Tannehill has really struggled to hit over the last 2 seasons, and last year only averaged 27 attempts per game. So this line, I think, is too high for the game environment that we project, which is slow and ugly between Tennessee and New Orleans. It's one of the lowest totals on the slate, and both of these teams over the last couple seasons have been slow in their pace of play and among the lowest in terms of their neutral pass rate. So if this game stays close, I think you're going to see minimal pass attempts from both sides of the ball. So I will take Tannehill under 31.5.
All right, Mr. Relevant, your boy Brock Purdy. In his starts last year, in the regular season, he hit over this line once. In the playoffs, he hit over this line no time. So in other words, we've seen this guy start 8 games, and he's only hit this once. I'm not quite sure why his line is this. The over-under is at 41.5. It kind of projects as a slow game. If they, especially him coming back from injury, it's hard for me to say he's going to push the button on more pass attempts. So I don't know. Is this a square pick for me just to throw in an injury thing at the end?
Yeah, man. Stay in your lane. Jeez. First Javonte, now you're talking about Purdy's elbow. No, but as you said, it does kind of make sense from a number standpoint. The only thing is, I think the market could be undervaluing a more aggressive Pittsburgh side on the other ball. So if they do end up going back and forth a little bit with Kenny Pickett, I could see the overhitting, but I think the numbers say that this is probably the right side.
Oh, I took the Steelers and the points.
Did you?
Yeah.
Big Kenny Pickett guy.
What if I told you that Mike Tomlin, as a home underdog, as a coach, is 16-4-3 against the spread? 16-4-3 as a home underdog.
That's pretty good.
What if I told you that Kyle Shanahan is 1-5 against the spread in week 1 as a head coach?
Yeah, they have struggled, actually, now that I think about that, kind of early in the season on the road.
Yes.
Which by the time they get to, November, they're rolling. But yeah, they have kind of started slow over the last couple of years.
Yeah, 2 years ago it was against the Lions. They had this backdoor where the Lions came. Kenny Pickett was 8-4 against the spread last year. Your boy. He's my boy. I'm so in on Kenny Pickett this year. But yeah, so Purdy under 31.5 pass attempts. I got that on Underdog. Betz under 31.5 pass attempts for Tannehill. You get that on Caesars, MGM, and then Hooper under 21.5 receiving yards. Watch him get 22. That's just kind of what he does. If you want to play with us on DraftKings, go to Ballers ballersdfs.com. Yes, ballersdfs.com. That will direct you to our DraftKings league that's called Fantasy Footballers DFS Borg plus Betz. You can join the league. We have a 1,000-person contest for week 1. And I just want to tell you people, you don't get a notification for that contest, but it is in there every single week. I would love to have that filled, because if we can have a 1,000-person contest filled from just our listeners, I bet DraftKings will give us even more. So it's a great contest. It's free to get in the league, and then joining the contest is just whatever the entry fee is. If it's $2, $5, whatever it is, we usually do pretty low stakes that you can play with people that also listen to this podcast. So you can invite your friends to the league. If you're a first timer, it's a fun league. And then every single week we get to say, hey, one of our listeners won this. We get to have some stories, and every once in a while, Betz and I maybe win money. But those are tough, man. Our listeners are good.
I'm usually so bad in those leagues. I don't know why. But as we always say, there's nothing better than taking our money, which is basically what this is. So yeah, come play with us. That contest is up there. There'll also be other options for you as well. Jump in the league.
Yep, ballersdfs.com. That's going to do it for this episode. DFSpass.com, guys. Our best plays will be out on Saturday. And get in the Discord. We can talk there too. Betz, say bye.
Week 1 is here, people. Let's win some money, win something huge. When you do, let us know. We'll be in Discord over the weekend. New articles on the site as well. Check them out. Best of luck. Go win something huge.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.